Anyways, cut off yung ating recording. Sorry about that one. Nag-crash po yung ating app. That's why I have to go back to the slide again. Anyways, no, I was talking about that. Per the definition, yung compound interest natin is an interest resulting from the period addition of simple interest to the principal amount. So, again, uh, ginagamit pa din natin yung idea ng interest, tapos since it's going to be done a multiple of times in a year, uh, syempre lalaki din yung ating compound interest. So it's not just basically yung plainly na simple interest. So what we are trying to find there is the compounded interest and as well as the compound amount. Okay? So we are going to make use of this idea, of course, na magamit kita ng simple interest, and we are going to do it couple of times dun sa compound, sa conversion date, and then we are going to compare it with the value that we are going to get when we use the formula for compound amount. Okay? So let's try to do that. Let's have a problem. So let's say itong example 2. So yung sa example 2, yung question is that Mr. Soriano deposited um, this is supposed to be deposited 16,400 pesos in an account earning 3% interest compounded quarterly. How much is in the account at the end of 1 year? So, same case again, class. We have to understand the problem. So, the flow that I give you is that we start with the given first. So, what are the given on the problem? So, we have to write down ano yung given. So, sa given natin, we have 16,400 pesos. So, ano yung 16,400 pesos dito? So, yung 16,400 pesos dito is the deposited amount. So, this is telling us that this is going to be our principal amount. Okay? So, we have to take note of that. P is going to be 16,400. And then, we also have another value given, which is 3%. So, ano yung 3% dito? Obviously, yung may percentage lang na as a unit is going to be our rate. So, this is our annual rate of interest. So, this is going to be R. So, this is going to be 3%. And again, we divide it with 100 so that we could get its decimal equivalent. So, it would be now 0.03. And then, we also have this one, compounded quarterly. Again, as I've told you, sa ating compounding periods, when we talk about compounding periods, if we go back to the slide, when it's compounded quarterly, that's going to be compounded 4 times a year. So every after 3 months in a year. So we are going to make use of m is equal to 4. So we are going to go back there. So this is going to be m is equal to 4. So this is going to be now m is equal to 4. So iniya aton m is equal to 4. And then, another value that we have right here is yung ating year. So, 1 year. So, that is going to be our time. So, that's going to be 1. And then, the question is, ano yung required? Yung required dyan is for you to calculate how much would be in the account at the end of 1 year. So, we are talking about the compounded amount. Since the context of the problem is yung problem is doing compound interest. So, therefore, we are finding for the F, or the future value, or the compound amount. And then, we are going to make use of the formula. So, ano yung formula na pwede doon sa ating problem? Obviously, since we are looking for the compound amount, we are going to make use of the formula, which is F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N. So, yan. Yan yung formula na ginagamit natin. So, if you go back, if you look at the formula, that's going to be F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N when we are looking for the compound amount. But, diba, I told you a while ago that we will not make use of this yet. Let's try to do muna yung sa simple interest na method. Since yung ating formula is taken out from the idea of doing periodic addition on our simple interest. So, if we are going to do yung ating usual na computation for simple interest, of course, we are making use now of our formula nga I is equal to PRT. So, we are going to do the computation, no? So, let's do yung first method na gagawin natin. So, this is going to be our simple interest for our sige natin first method adian natin sa alternate this is going to be our sige na lang ano kanalay niya simple interest na method. Simple interest method, this one is really using yung sa compound amount. Or let's say compound amount method. So, let's do yung ito muna. So, sa simple interest method, let's do yung simple interest method. So, how do we know that it's just the same thing, right? So, simple interest method, what we are going to do, of course, what we need sa simple interest is just our P, the R, and T. So, we have that, P, R, and T. Now, what we are going to do is just do this 4 times. Kasi yung ating compounding periods is going to be 4. Okay? So, we are going to take out yung period 1 muna. And then, after which, we get the interest again for the period 2 until we get yung pinaka last value for period 4. So, if we are going to do period 1, that's going to be I is equal to PRT. And that will be a P, which is 16,400, times the R, which is 0.03, times an aton year. So, since we are doing this every after 3 months, and then our, what do you call this one? Yung ating year consists of 12 months, therefore, we are going to use 3 over 12. So, after every 3 months, this is telling us that after every 3 months, na kita nakuhaan aton simple interest. So, it's going to be 3 over 12, and then 16,400 times 0.03 times 3 over 12 is how much? So, we are going to pull up a calculator for that one, so that we'll be able to calculate it. So, we could do 16,400 times 0.03 times 3. So, 16,400 times 0.03 times 3 divided by 12. So, as you can see, we have 123 pesos. 123 pesos for the interest. And then, what we are going to do is we are going to find yung yung ano din niya, yung pinaka new na principal amount. Kasi doon tayo kukuha na naman ng ating interest. Okay? So, for this case, F is equal to P plus I, or the future value is equal to the P plus I. So, it's going to be now 100, principal, 16,400 plus 123, which is going to be F is equal to 16,523. So, that's our new principal. And we do yung period 2 niya, or yung second na period. Kasi we are going to do this 4 times. So, this is our new principal amount. We are still going to use the same value. So, I is equal to PRT. And then, instead of using 16,400, we are going to use now 16,523. So, anyways, medyo malag siya dito nga part. So, I'll just move to this portion, no? So, I'll just take note of this one instead. So, ini, mag-period 2 na lang ako dayon. So, period 2. And then, I'm just going to erase the value here. So, it's going to be 16,523. Tapos, we are going to determine its simple interest. So, it's going to be now 16,523 times 0.03 times the times 3 divided by 12, which would give you 123.9225. So it's going to be 123.9225. And then these value would now be used to calculate for the new future value. So for this case, this would be erased. You would substitute this by 16,523 plus 123.9225. So we are going to add plus 16,523, which would give us 16,646.9225. So 16,646, I mean, point 9225. So that's our new principal amount now. And we would move on to the third period. So, after this one, amo nato natong pakakuha hand compound amount na niya. So, for this case, we are going to again replace this one by 16,646.9225. So, let me just properly write that down. So, 9225 ito times 0.03. And again, we do the same thing. We are going to find the interest. So, 16,400, this is the value. 16,000, ano nga yan? 16,646. 16,646.9225. 9225 times 0.03 times 0.25 divided by 12. So, it would be now, I don't know, kay 0.25 ko na dayon, kay 3 over 12 is 0.25. So, that would be itong value, which is going to give you, but anyways, na-erase ko siya. How do we go back? Okay, na-erase ko na siya. Let's redo it again. So, it's going to be 16,646.9225 times 0.03 times 3 divided by 12. So, we get 124.85191875. So, we just copy everything. I highly advise nga ikopya natin an every digit unless it's going to be our final value so that we could get yung pinaka-exact value na. So, 85191875. So, this would be added now to our new principal amount. So, it would be 16,646.9225 plus 124.85191875. So, we are going to add this value na here. So, 16,000 for 646.9225, which would give you 16,771.77441875. So, that's going to be our new principal amount again. And after this, after we do period 4, then we would now find out what would be the compounded amount. So 16,771.77 for 41875. We are going to replace this one again for period 4. So this would be erased. So this would be now 16,771.77 for 41875. 1875 times 0.03 times 3 over 12. And then we would calculate again for its interest. So we have this. We just have to multiply it by 0.03 times 3 divided by 12. And then as you can see, we would get an interest of 125.788308140625. So we just have to make use of that one as well. So 125 point ano nga yun? 788 788,308 788,308 140625 140625. And then we are going to get again yung ano niya, future value, which is now going to be our compound amount because we are just going to end up until period 4 since it's just going to be compounded 4 times in a year. So it's going to be now 16,771.77 44 77441875 plus 125.788,308,140,625. And then we are going to add this one. We would get the sum of this, and then it would be now 16,771 point 44 um 1875 1875. And then we would get this value, which is 16,897.562726890625. But we could just have yung ating ano na lang 16,897.56. So we could just round it off by then na lang. Kaya since adin naman nga ni kitahan aton pinaka final values, we could just have 16,897.56. So answering the problem, no, how much would be in the account at the end of the year? That would be 16,897.56. So ito yung expected na makukuha natin once we use the formula. Since sabi ko nga, yung idea niya is from doing periodic addition to our simple interest. So let's try to do now yung using the formula, which is itong compound amount method natin, or using the formula for compound amount. So if we do that, it would be now f is equal to p times 1 plus I raised to n. And again, you have to make sure that you know the value of I and n. Again, the I there is going to be I is equal to R divided by M. So before you go here, you have to be able to calculate that one here muna. So I almost forgot about that one. So paki-add niyan doon sa ating given. So that we could immediately use it on our formula. So I is equal to R divided by M. So it would be 0.03 divided by 4. And then let's try to calculate how much is that one. So 0.03 divided by 4 is going to be 0.0075. So it would be now 0.0075. And then we know that n there is empty. So ano yung m natin, ano yung t? That's 4 times 1. So this would give us 4 lagi hapon. But these values would differ, of course, because sometimes we would get a different t. It's just in this case that 1 lagi hapon na natin t. So anyways, going back to the computation, we could now calculate for the compound amount. So yung p natin there is 16,400 times 1 plus I. What's our I? 0.0075 times, raised to n, which is 4. And then 16,400, and then this would be 1.0075 raised to 4. So we just get yung value natin raised to this one, yung ating 1.0075 raised to 4. So let's try to do that, no? 1.0075 raised to 4. So raised to, anyways, 1.0075 raised to 4. So it would give you this value. I advise again that you copy everything. So we have to copy everything. So it would be now 1.03, 033, and then 919, 066, 40625. 40625. So that's everything. And then we multiply it by 16,400 to get now the compound amount. So we multiply this value with 16,400, which is our principal. And then as you can see, we would get 16,897.56 still. So if you observe, we still arrive with the same value. So again, nakadepende na ito ha imo, which would be high ka mas comfortable. So for this case, it would be much better if we use na lang yung formula, because anyways, it would still give you the same value. So pinadali na yung ating buhay nang nagkaroon na tayo ng formula in finding for the compound amount. So we don't have to do such thing na we will do periodic addition of interest to our principal, to our value or to our principal. Okay, so for this case, that's the solution. So again, you have to answer the problem for the last part. You have to have a conclusion. So it if you are going to answer the problem, it would be now Mr. Soriano. Uh, I mean, the account in at the end of 1 year, uh, the account, I mean, Mr. Soriano's account at the end of 1 year would have 16,897.56 pesos. Okay? So, ganun lang naman kadali mag-use ng ating formula for compound amount. And then, this one, let's do yung example 1. Anyways, madali lang tong example 1 as well. So, I haven't added a question for this case. So for this case, you have to find the compound amount. Let's say find the compound amount and the compound interest. So anyways, let's do the same thing now. We are going to find for the given. So yung given natin of use, we have, anyways, let's try to read the problem first. So sabi sa problem, a student deposits 5,000 pesos in savings account, earning 2% interest compounded annually now. The question is to find the compound amount and the compound interest. So let's do first yung pinaka first value. Let's try to determine what type of given this is. So yung 5,000 pesos there is a value that was deposited. So this is going to be our principal because that is the value that we start with. And then for 2%, that's going to be our annual interest rate. And now, and when we're talking about compound annually, that means that we are compounding our principal amount only one time. So m is equal to 1. And then we are now going to take note of this. So P here is 5,000. And then R here is going to be 2%. And then we are going to convert it, so it's going to be 0.02. And then for M, that is 1. And then you also have a missing value for the problem. Let's say at the end of 2 years. Let's say 2 years. So that's going to be our time. So at the end of 2 years, t is equal to 2. Now, what is the required? The required is to find the compound amount and the compound interest. So yung compound amount natin is F. And then let's try to set up just a variable in finding for the compound interest. Anyways, it's a type of interest. So let's try to use the variable na rin na I. But let's try to be specific what type of interest it would be. Let's put in a subscript to it, which is going to be I sub C, to differentiate it with the usual na simple interest. Okay, non-usual na interest in advance or simple discount. So it will be now I sub C. So I sub C, and then we are also finding for the F, or the future value, or the compound amount. Now, what's going to be the formula that we are going to use? So for the formula, obviously, if we are finding for the compound amount, it will be F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N. And then if we are going to find for the interest, so yung interest natin will be a value that would be subtracted to our compound amount. So, I mean, it's a value or a difference resulting from subtracting, our principal with the compound amount. So what we are going to do is, of course, we are going to mathematically, mathematically create an equation for that one. So let's say yung ating I sub C is the compound interest, yung F is the compound amount, tapos yung P is the principal. So if we are finding for our compound interest, again, we are subtracting our compound amount with our principal amount. So for this case, it's going to be compound interest is equal to F minus P. Okay? And then if we do the computation now, obviously we are going to do the same thing. Computation for the compound amount first, that's going to be f is equal to p times 1 plus I raised to n. And again, we have to know which is I. So sa I, it's going to be r divided by m. And r there is 0.02. And then, how many times is it compounded? It's going to be 1. And then, if we are going to find for n, that is equal to mt. So if empty siya, then m would be 1, and then the time would be 2 years. So your n is going to be 2. And then yung p mo dyan is going to be 5,000 if we go back to the calculation. And then 1 plus I, which is the value of our I, is still 0.02, I mean. So 0.02 pa din yan. And then yung n mo is 2. So it will be now 5,000 times 1.02 raised to 2. And then we do the exponents first, class. Do not do this way nga nasa sayo pa ng students wherein they would multiply immediately 5,000 with 1.02. Remember, we are still going to follow PEMDAS. So, nauuna an aton pag duhan aton exponents. So, we do this first. Tapos, later on na natin hiyag mo multiply hanakad to hagawas. Okay? So, for this case, it would be now 1.02 raised to 2, tapos you do multiplication afterwards. So, 1.02 raised to 2, 0.02 raised to 2 is going to be 1.0404. So, this is going to be 1.0404. And then, you just multiply it by 5,000. So, multiply it by 5,000 to get your future value or your compound amount. So this is telling us that the compound amount is going to be 5,202 pesos. If I mean the compound amount of this student. So after which we have to calculate for the compound interest as well. So we have both of these values. So compound interest stands for I sub c is equal to f minus p. So ano yung ating f? It's going to be 5,202 minus our principal, which is 5,000. So yung ating na compound ang value ng ating compound interest, I mean, is going to be just 202 pesos. So hindi yung ating compound amount is the compound interest. Okay? Okay, and iba nalilipat because we are using this formula. This is going to be our compound interest. No, this is going to be our compound amount or future value. Our interest is this one. Okay, this is 202 pesos. And then, anyways, let's do another problem. So another problem, let's say ito. So number 3, for number 3, we are going to find for the compound amount. So for this case, suppose you deposit 10,000 pesos in a savings account earning 5% interest compounded annually. So what is the compound amount after 2 years? And again, what I'd like you to do is identify first the given. So for this case, ano yung 10,000 pesos there? So again, yung 10,000 pesos there is the deposited amount. So that is the value that we start with. So that's going to be our principal. Tapos yung 5%, ano dyan siya? Yung annual interest rate. And then, ano yung meaning ng compounded annually? Yung meaning ng compounded annually is we do it one time in a year. So it's going to be now 1. And then, that's our M as well. And then, what are the values? We still have 2 years, so this is going to be our time. And then, what is the value that we are looking for? That is going to be the compound amount, which is our F. So, we are going to do the same thing, no? Take note of this one. P is equal to 10,000. And then, or there is 5%, which is 0.05. And then, M there is going to be 1. And then, T there is going to be 2. Tapos, yung required sa'yo, or yung pinapahanap sa'yo, is going to be our F. And obviously, the formula that we are going to use is for the compound amount, which is F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N. And then, we do the computation. We are just going to substitute the values, right? And then we need the I. So pag I, that's all equal to R over M. And then yung R mo dyan is 0.05 divided by M, which would give you 0.05 still. And then for N, that is MT. So ano yung M natin? 1. Ano yung T natin? 2. So it's going to be 2. And then we substitute now it to our formula. And then we could have P is going to be 10,000. And then 1 plus the I we calculated, which is 0.05. And then raised to N, which is 2. And then it's going to be 10,000 times 1.05 raised to 2. And then 1.05 raised to 2 is going to give you 1.1025. So 10,000 times 1.1025. So we just calculate this times 10,000. So we get now 11,025. So 11,025 is your compound amount or the future value. So if we are going to answer the problem, so it's going to be, for the conclusion, what is the compound amount? It will be the compound amount will be 11,025 after 2 years. Okay? Anyways, another problem. Let's have the last one for compound amount and compound interest. So let's say the problem is to determine the amount in interest if 10,500 is invested at 10% compounded quarterly for 3 years. Now, the same thing, solution, determine the given. So we have to determine the given. The given value first is 10,500 pesos. So ano to? Determine the amount and interest if 10,500 is invested. So this is the value that we start with. So obviously, this is our principal amount. And then 10,000 pesos, excuse me about that one, by the way. And 10,000 naman, going back, is going to be our rate. So rate is going to be 10%, and then 10 divided by 100 obviously is going to be 0.10. So that's the decimal equivalent ng ating 10%. Tapos if we go here, compounded quarterly. So ano yung quarterly natin? So yung quarterly natin is going to divide yung ating to be done 4 times in a year. So 4 times in a year, after every 3 months. So M is going to be equal to 4. And then what about 3 years? Yung 3 years natin is going to be the time. So time, and then that's going to be 3. Tapos yung ipinapahanap sa atin is the compound amount and the interest. So we are going to take note of that. That's a required or the unknown value. The required value is the compound amount, that's going to be F, and we are also finding for the interest, compound interest. Now, what are the formulas to be used? So what is the formula? Again, it's going to be F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N, and you could also do I sub C is equal to F minus P. And then we do the computation. We do the computation first for the compound amount. So it would be F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N. And again, we need to have the I and N. So yung I would be R divided by M. So R is going to be 0.10 divided by 4. And then what's the value of 0.10 divided by 4? 0.10 divided by 4 is going to be 0.025. So 0.025 is going to be our I. And then for our N, it's going to be MT. So yung M natin there is 4. The years is 3. So it would be 12. So we just basically substitute everything. So 10,500 times 1 plus I, which is 0.025 raised to 12. And then we do the values first in the parentheses. So 1.025 raised to 12. So we'll get this value first, yung 1.025 raised to 12. So if you do that, 1.025 raised to 12 is going to be 1.33 these are a lot of values. So I could just say na lang 1 to 1.344. I would not just notate it here, but again, it would stop at 29, 129 here. There are a lot of values in between. And then I'll just multiply this one in with 10,500 pesos. So it would be now 14,121.33. So we could settle for that one. And again, make sure that you know how to round off the values, okay? So kung 5 greater than 5 na hiya, and beside naton 3 for example, you have to round off 3 to 4. But if it's less than, you could retain the value of 3 there. So you would just copy 14,000 121.33. So this would be our future value or the compound amount. And then we need to also find your I sub c, which is equal to f minus p. So ano yung f natin? Again, this one. And we could just copy the value, 14,121.33 minus our principal amount, which is 10,500, to find the compound interest. So let me just go back. So 14,121.33 minus 10,500, which would give you 3,621.33. So 3,621.33 pesos. Of course, class, you have to follow kung ano gihapon ng iya bagat unit of measure. So for this case, we are still talking about pesos here. It could be any currency, by the way. So for this case, ano lang ta pesos? 3,621.33 pesos for the compound interest. So if you are going to answer the problem, you could just say the amount, the compound amount is 14,121.33 and the compound interest is 3,621.33. Okay? So ganun lang. Ganun lang tayo nagka-calculate sa compound amount tsaka compound interest. And also, as an additional knowledge, no, it might come out on the exams. We could also calculate for the other variables. Diba? Same case, han aton interest. What I did there is we could actually calculate for other values. For an akon is that I will just introduce you to one of the variables that we could find, which is going to be yung ating principal amount. So we could also find the principal amount using our formula. But we are just going to focus on that one. There nakita makadhan R, naton N, M, and T, but we could also find those values. So anyways, going back on the formula, diba? Yung formula natin is F is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to N when you are finding for the compound amount. Now, what if you are finding for the P there? So again, what we are going to do is algebraically manipulate our equation and isolate P, because the P is what the value P is the value that we are looking for. So if we are going to isolate P there, it's going to be dividing 1 plus I raised to N on both sides. So if we start with this, we are going to divide both sides by 1 plus I raised to N para maka-come up kita or maka-derive kita in equation that would always give us our principal amount. So F now, that would be now P is equal to F divided by 1 plus I raised to N. And then we could actually arrange this one para waray kita pinaka-denominator. We could actually move the entire expression into the numerator, and if we do so, we are going to follow the law of exponents. If we are doing the law of exponents, if we are moving our values haaton vinculum, this is what you call a vinculum, kung naka-positive ini nga exponent didi, magiging negative hiya nga tuha igbaw. So for this case, F times 1 plus I raised to negative N. So this is the formula that we are going to use whenever we are finding for the principal amount. And again, you might be confused again kasi sa other books, they would use a different formula, but it is just the same thing. What I meant is that we could just expand this one, right? So, kung adit natin i-focusan, if expand natin here, some books would have this kind of formula na P is equal to F divided by 1 plus R over M raised to M T. So, N there is equal to MT. So, you could have this kind of formula. Okay? Amo lagi hapon ito niya. Kay parparehas la ito ng context of use nila. So, may daghapon itong formula na masugad. Kung iban iya variable, just like what we use with A, it would be A, P is equal to A divided by 1 plus R over N times NT. So, in hiya, same case la ito hadi. It's just that iba lang nga variable and use. Okay? So, for this case, we could actually make use of this one. It's just the same thing. Gin-transform lang nato an equation. Same lang context of use. Basta maaram ka kung ano mo i-substitute dito, you won't have any problem. So, for this case, we are going to use this one now. This is the derived formula that we have. Basta maaram ka la kung ano ang paggamit ta ira ha problem. So, let's say ha number 5. Let's do it at number 5. How much money should be invested? So, this was a problem. How much money should be invested in an account that earns 8% compounded quarterly in order to have 3,500, not 3,500, excuse me, 30,000 in 5 years. So, if you look at the problem, the required value is how much money should be invested. So, what we are looking for, if you understand the problem, this is going to tell you na we have to find the principal amount or the value that we start with. So, if we do that, no, if we answer number 5 for a solution, we are going to identify the given. So, ano yung given doon? We have 8% interest. Obviously, this is our R, or our annual interest rate. So, 8%, and then we calculate for its decimal equivalent. It would be now 0.08. Tapos, you compounded it quarterly. So, you do it 4 times on those compound dates. Kasi pwede naman siyang hindi in a year. Pwede naman siyang in a year pala. Kay in a year man na niya bagat ka-calculate. So, you do that 4 times in a year. And then, of course, ang span niya for the compound date up until 5 years. So, for this case, M there is going to be 4. And then, 30,000 would be our compound amount. Okay? In order to have. So, that's a future value that we have. So, future value is 30,000 pesos. And then, yung 5 years there is obviously our time. So, yeah. And then, we have to notate that one. Tapos, what would be the required now? So, required is going to be how much money. This is telling us that we are finding for the principal amount. And then, of course, what is going to be the formula that is supposed to be used? That would be P is equal to F times 1 plus I raised to negative N. And again, it's not explicitly defined in the problem what are your I's and N's. So you have to find I. And again, it's I is equal to R divided by M. And again, your R there is going to be 0.08 divided by 4. So how much is 0.08 divided by 4? So 0.08 divided by 4 is going to be 0.02. So our I is 0.02. And again, we also need to have the N, which is MT. So yung M dyan is 4, and then yung T there is 5. So your N there is going to be 20. Kasi 4 times 5 is 20. And then we now calculate for the value. So we all have the values that we need to find for our principal value. So it would be now computation, P is equal to F times 1 plus I raised to negative N. And then yung F mo there is 30,000. That's a compound amount. 1 plus I, which is 0.02, and then negative. Do not forget that it's negative. Negative 20. Tapos, 30,000 times 1.02 raised to negative 20. So, we could start with this one, yung ating 1.02 raised to negative 20. 1.02 raised to negative 20. No. 1.02 raised to negative 20. So, ano ko na lang, 1.02 raised to negative 20. Kailangan meron siyang niya. So 1.0 raised to negative 20 is 0.6729. That's a lot of numbers. We could just multiply this one na lang with 30,000 immediately. So 30,000, and then we get 20,000 189.14. 20,189.14. So we could just have that value here. So 20,189.14 pesos. So that's our principal amount. So if we are going to answer the problem, that would be that the money that should be invested kay why pa man ngayon hiya invest, no? We are still trying to see how much money we would need to have 30,000 pesos after 5 years. So it would be now the money that should be invested is 20,189.14 pesos. Okay? And also, sige, i-show natin gihapon doon sa formula na naka-explicitly defined yung mga variable or explicitly seen ang aton mga variables, no? So again, ang counterpart kini nga kuan na nakikita gud naton ang aton mga R, M ngan MT is going to be an expanded form here, which is P is equal to F times 1 plus R. Yung R natin there is going to be I, R over M raised to negative MT. And we are going to revert back this entire binomial expression dun sa ating denominator. So, go-boost natin here para maging positive here. Kasi that's one of the things that we could do when we are transforming expressions using law of exponents. So, it would be F divided by 1 plus R over M raised to MT. And then, kung di rin na kita magpibiling hini, we could just directly use whatever we have right here. So, yung F there is 30,000. And then, 1 plus, the quantity of 1 plus R, which is 0.08, divided by 4 times 4 raised to 5, which would give you 30,000 divided by 1 plus 0.02, which would still give you 1.02, by the way. 1.02 raised to 20. So we could just have 30,000 and then get whichever value we get from 1.02 raised to 20. So yung 1.02 raised to 20, kanina yun. So 1.02 raised to 20 is just that yung negative counterpart niya yun. So 1.02 raised to 20 is this value. So in here, nga value, i-divide mo 30,000 with this one. So what you're going to do, no? Can we do this? And wait. 30,000. So 30,000 divided by that value. So yan. So as you can see, we still arrive at the same value. It's still 20,189.14. So 20,189.14 pesos.